This episode is brought to you by Granicus and the Macro Group. Welcome to another episode of BTT Discussions, aka the Black Tech Talent Podcast. Like every other episode, we have a special guest today. I'm very excited to talk to this brother. You know, one thing that excites me about this podcast is I get to speak to so many different people. And although all of our guests up to this point has been Black, there's so much diversity within Black and Blackness and the different backgrounds that we come from and where we're at in the world and where we're at in our careers and our journeys. So I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Nimali. We met on Clubhouse. So this is actually my first guest from Clubhouse. And we were in a few different rooms together, some for fun, some for business.
a few different rooms.
and we just connected on a different level. So I'm going to let Nimali go ahead and kind of introduce himself and let you know where he's at in the world and what his career is. And then we'll kind of get into his story. So Nimali, welcome to the show. Let the people know what's going on.
Dude, I'm really, really glad to be here, man. Super excited. You got the chair set up. I'm amped. So my name is Amin Nimali. I am a product manager at Live Nation, working on the Universe virtual events. Love product, love what I do. Been doing it for about 8 years now. It's definitely been a journey. Definitely been some trying times, but really and truly, I love being able to build things into reality with amazing people and amazing teams. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here with my boy Mike. Talk some shit and just go and make this happen. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I'm glad you're excited about the throne because I almost didn't add it. I had to remove it and use my regular computer, my desk chair for something I was doing. And then I was like, should I bring it back in or should I, do I feel like it? And I'm like, nah, I gotta have the throne for this episode. So.
Oh, dude, it's an excellent taste, my man. It's Black History Month. You have to have the chair.
Of course, executive decisions.
Come on.
So and also we have to mention that you're in Canada.
Yep, I'm in Toronto, the 6th. It's interesting here, man. We're completely shut down due to the pandemic. It's been like 12 months since I've seen the inside of my workspace, dude. And it's been difficult, not gonna lie. Clubhouse and meeting you and, building connection has been something that really has helped me cope, overall. Cause it's like, imagine waking up every morning at like 8 a.m. and staring at a monitor till like 6 or 7. And
right.
It's truly difficult. And the human interaction is really what makes work bearable, right? It's in your career being able to build that empathetic path with your teammates, being able to have those conversations on the side, have a coffee in the morning together. You really realize how much that matters.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like Uber Eats saying Timmy's in the morning, and I'm like it's not the same. It's not the scale. Yeah. It's not the same, especially when you have African parents screaming in the background. I'm like, they need to reopen things. Right. I couldn't do it anymore. But you know what I mean? It's been a really interesting time in Toronto. We are, things are getting better, but really hoping for the future.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where, if you're a creative, whether working in corporate or as an entrepreneur or in the entertainment industry, being out and about and interacting with people is part of the inspirational process, 100%. Right? Having those 100%. Experiences. And so you lose a lot of that being inside and becoming super technical and just, It's funny because people lost access to us in one way, but then they gained so much access in another way. And that's where Zoom fatigue and all these other things come on. Because everybody's like, let's just jump on Zoom. And it's like, I gotta get the beard prepared to be camera ready. I can't.
100%.
And I think that's why Clubhouse has one of the factors of it growing so fast is you can be on there. It doesn't matter what you actually look like in the moment, as long as your profile picture's right, you're good to go. So,
what the funny thing is, Mike? Like I joined Clubhouse because one thing is what this pandemic's done for me in product. It's taken away from me to sit down and talk to people about what I'm building, right? Talk to the customers, talk to consumers and learn about their problems and ask the right questions, right? It's one thing to send out a questionnaire and people are typically pretty lazy and they're not going to fill it out the way you want them to fill it out. But when you have
Right.
that honest customer or consumer in your face and you're building a tech product for them, you get the most out of it, right? And I'm pretty empathetic, I'm pretty easygoing, so people open up, and that's really helped me build great products for my team. And that's something that I'm like, man, I don't have access to my customers anymore. They're not, it's like it's incredibly dangerous and not forthright to have them sit in a
Right.
room in the office during a pandemic. So how am I going to talk to artists and learn about what they're going through during the pandemic? And Clubhouse was seemingly that thing. My friend Amari's like, Nimali, man, you got to get on this app. It's like it's the next big thing. Like, you get to talk with artists, you talk with creatives like yourself, dude. Like, talk with tech people. And I'm like, Omari, what are you talking about, bro? Like, is this Omegle? Because dude, I'm not going on like an Omegle like app or a chat roulette because I know exactly what's gonna happen.
Mhm.
No, he's like, no, it's audio only, and I'm like, all right, man, send me an invite. He sends me this invite, and man, it's been night and day in terms of like just learning, just sitting in the audience and listening to artists talk about what they're going through during this pandemic, listening and seeing how they're trying to tour, how they're trying to really reach their audiences has been incredibly like eye-opening, right? Like,
Mhm.
creativity is going to find a way. It's going to
Yeah.
find a way 100%. And this app is really building a platform for that. And it's crazy, man. I've heard certain artists say, "Hey, we're going to Dubai. We're doing a live event there, and we're gonna set it up this way, and we're gonna do rapid tests." And I'm like, dude, these booking agencies, these promoters, these artists, already like 6 months ahead. They're thinking post COVID. They're thinking how to reach
Yeah.
their audiences. They're on Clubhouse, making rooms, putting their Cash App on there so people can listen to them speak. Innovative as hell.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's that's I've been in some of those different rooms too, and I've been in a lot of the promoter rooms and the booking agent rooms with some of the big dogs in the game. And for listeners who don't know, I own a company called the Premium Experience, and Premium is an event marketing platform that helps venues and promoters better understand their audience through data and analytics. And so when I go into some of these rooms, especially some of the more urban hip hop type rooms, a lot of them aren't even on why they even need data, because if their artists are
Yep.
already huge, they're
Yep.
like, why do we need that? Things are working the way they're working. But what it is you're still at the mercy of whoever you're dealing with, because they're the ones
Exactly.
who own and have the data, and you're just
Exactly.
waiting to be booked. And so when
Hmm.
things were good, the tool that I built would have been awesome, but now it's even more so relevant because
Absolutely.
now everyone's trying to get booked, everyone's trying to get a touring deal, everybody's trying to figure out what's going
Hmm.
on between live events and online
Yep.
events, and so that's needed even more so. And so I've sat in some of those rooms and just listened, like how they're
Hmm.
going to handle security, and how are they going to enforce people wearing a mask, like once they get
Yep.
in and sit down, do they still have to wear it? Do they take it off?
Yep.
The capacities. And like one interesting conversation that I've listened to is who should pay for all of this, right? Should the artist pay for plexiglass to go up between the stage and the audience, or should the
Hmm.
venue have to pay for it, or should the promoter pay for it, right?
Yep.
Rapid testing, things of this nature. So there's still a
Yep.
lot to figure out, but the conversations have been great so far in
Dude,
that space.
you're spot on. It's the data portion is going to be incredibly critical because we're hitting what I feel is a next generational wave here, especially with COVID. Before COVID, we were watching kids watch people eat food on Twitch and
Yeah.
pay hundreds of dollars. And this was like, if you weren't a part of a certain niche or a certain age group, you didn't know this was happening,
Right.
right? And you're looking from the outside, you're like, why is this happening? Like, why are like this is weird, man. This
Yeah.
is weird. Well, this is the next generational jump. We've
Yeah.
seen that jump happen in the early 2000s with the rise of high-speed internet and the adaptation of Facebook and Instagram. What's happening now is with COVID, what social is defined as is no longer just, hey, sitting down with your friends, grabbing a beer, going to the movies. Social can be defined as going and sitting down with your friends on Zoom and watching a influencer eat food and talk about their day.
Yeah.
I was talking with a great creator. His name is Pierre XO, and he was telling me about his shift from doing like YouTube, like fully produced YouTube pieces of content, which are incredibly hard to edit, really difficult.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I made this shift to doing live streams and sitting there with my audience, and it's paid in dividends. I'm not going through that whole editing cycle of, you know, sitting there creating a high production piece of content that's going to take me 2 weeks. I just jump on a live stream and I sit there with my audience, and it's been day and night on my engagement. And then what I thought of, I'm like, man, that's weird, man. Like, how do you go from these really nicely produced videos to like this really like sitting there joking around with his audience? And then I started to realize, dude, like COVID is really expediting the shift, this generational shift. Not only is the younger generations adapting, but the older generations now have to adapt because
Yeah.
their work is all virtual.
Yeah.
The way they meet people, like if you get a $750 ticket in Toronto for being with your homies and your friends, that's gonna put a bad taste in your mouth. You feel me? So like, man, it's crazy how a pandemic is now shaping how society is gonna look post this. And to your point about data, if you do not know where your consumer is as an artist, you do not know how they look, you're going to have a problem monetizing on that consumer. It doesn't matter about your Instagram likes, it doesn't matter about your listens. At the end of the day, for you as an artist that wants to tour, it's about, can you sell tickets?
Yeah.
Can
And,
you sell
and and
tickets?
I feel like a lot of artists, especially the bigger they are,
Yep.
they're, if you were to ask an entrepreneur like what's the profile of your customer,
Yep.
even like a newbie would have a basic
Exactly.
answer, and then you could coach them through the rest of the answers, right? You could be
Yep.
like dive deeper. If you
Yep.
ask, Nelly, what's the profile of your audience? It's gonna be like people who love Nelly.
The people who love Nelly.
You know.
And he's not wrong. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. People that love Nelly, my man. Jeez, dude. And he's not wrong. Cause like, dude, it's crazy. Cause like as an artist, like if what you've been doing works, and now like you're like, dude, like when this thing's done, like it's gonna work again. That's the inherent bias.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the downfall. I wouldn't say downfall. I don't want to say that. It's gonna hurt artists. It's just gonna hurt them.
Well, it's gonna hurt them. They'll figure it out, but they'll be late to the game, and then that dollar figure is gonna look different. And
It's
like
gonna,
being in those rooms we were in with a lot of their managers and agents,
yeah.
they're struggling on getting them to understand that there's no front end and back end
Yep.
on virtual events. The bag's different,
The bag hits different, and you got
Yeah,
to do a lot more for that bag, right? That's the
yeah,
one thing, right? So, but the thing about it is, there's a way to look at live streams in a way that makes sense, right? Like it is a bag regardless, but it's a way to connect to your audience. It's a way
yeah,
to be able to build that house that your audience and you and your fan are going to live in after the pandemic. If you're connecting with your audience, you're selling merch, you're doing things to make those sacrifices to build that relationship, that person's going to now, hey, when they're making that decision on potentially in Atlanta or potentially in a state where they have rapid tests for every live event or concert, when they're like, oh, should I buy this ticket for so and so, but man, dude, I got to get a rapid test, and if I buy this ticket, I might have to get a refund if I have COVID, and it's kind of embarrassing. These are decisions that are going through the
yeah,
buyer's head,
yeah,
and
definitely.
if you don't have that relationship with that buyer, that decision becomes pretty part of my life. It's pretty fucking easy. You feel me?
Yeah,
So it doesn't, and it's not only for artists, for all creatives, for dancers, for influencers. Like this is a time to sow those seeds with your audience and have that real engagement, that real intimacy, make the sacrifices you need to make
yeah.
for your audience.
Well, it's also an opportunity for them to be scalable.
100%.
Like up until now,
100%.
most artists have only been able to sell their byproducts, right?
Yep.
Endorsements, creating products, doing partnerships and brand
Yep.
deals.
Mm-hmm.
But now you could literally do a multi-city tour
Yep.
from in one day,
And one day from your house.
and
From your,
you could sell merch and have
yep.
people pre-buy the merch before the event and make sure it goes out 2 days.
Yep.
There's all sorts of stuff. We're not going to give away all of our ideas, but There's a lot of things that they could be doing. So hit up me or Nimali if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out what to do to monetize. But let's I want to get back into your story a little bit. So, let's go back. And the first question I usually ask my guests is as a young black man, like what made you get into tech? What kind of sparked that interest?
So when I was like 6 or 7, my dad used to get me Lego sets that I used to build by myself. I was an only child. I used to love building things. Was I great at it? When I was 6 or 7, I was absolute shit. My dad used to help me build the thing right on the cover of the Lego set. And as I grew older, I didn't grow up fairly wealthy or anything. I had two parents that loved me, and that's really what I needed. Um, I was like, okay, I want to make money. That was like the thing in high school for me. I want to like be a stockbroker. I want to like sell shares, and I want to like live that Wolf on Wall Street lifestyle. So in high school, dude, I was like, I'm going to study, and I got into a really good school in Canada, one of the top business schools called Schulich. It was great, and then when I got in, life hits, right? My father passed away of cancer. Mom was going through her own thing. So I had to be the provider as well. So my first year went to school, worked at meat factories for a little bit, just like trying to make ends meet. And then from there, my second year, I had gotten some of the money from my father's will, my mom's savings. And I'm like, I had this really good boy. I'm like, hey, let's just do this thing. Let's do a startup. Anyways, long story short, I built this Periscope like app, but I didn't know how to go to market. I thought because I was a fintech bro that I knew the whole idea of building a business because I took 2 years of business school. It exploded right in my face. It was like we raised a lot of money. And by my fourth year, I was going to school, working and doing my startup, and it ended up exploding. Like when I mean imploding, it's like we did not know how to take the sucker to go to market. We had no concept of marketing. We had alpha tested, raised a shit ton of money before even knowing what that was going to do to our company. And as one of my personal mentors, Walter J. Burchell, he was a executive head at Schulich, told me, he's like, Ahmed, when you're going into this, you got to make sure that your basement's not flooded with water. What you're doing right now is you're flooding your basement with water, and you're not really building something with the mind of going to market. You're just trying to build it. That didn't resonate with me until I was in my fourth year and I had lost everything. So I ended up saying, okay, I got to formalize my education. Like, what is the career path that does this, that builds products and solves problems, and ended up being a product manager. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to be a PM. Ended up getting my first job right out of school as a junior product manager at a company called Symbility. It was an engineering agency that helped solve problems for companies like Walmart, TD Bank. Funny enough, also the WeVibe, which I worked on for a long time, and I'll tell you about that shortly. Interesting product. But dude, I was fucking terrible in my first job. I came in with this massive ego saying, hey, I built something and we did it. We like deployed this, like this is, and I raised money. And dude, I shit the bed because there's this whole context when you're going into your career of like the way to, when you're at the bottom, the way to talk to your stakeholders, the way to get feedback, the way to, cultivate relationships to get something, your ideas through. And that was what I was fundamentally lacking. And the context of asking questions wasn't something in my dictionary. So I ended up shitting the bed for 6 months. And, my boss told me, she's like, Ahmed, you gotta like ask a lot of questions. You gotta like believe in yourself and have the confidence, because every time I failed, I lost that bit of confidence I built up to the point where I was just a shell of myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting better and better, but it wasn't fast enough. So I worked there for about a year and such. And, I realized, dude, this engineering agency wasn't right for me, but I had built a lot of friendships there and a lot of people were there to help me grow. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity at this company called CrowdSpark that's going to let me build something end to end, because in an agency, you're not building an end-to-end product. You're just solving a specific problem for that client and deploying it with no feedback. So ended up going to a company called CrowdSpark. It was a company that basically had a CMS, a B2B service. Ended up building that out. We had this product that I had visioned which was like allowing citizen journalists to, get their news across or break the news with their content. And we already had a syndication funnel. So we sold the service and this API and SDK to like Al Jazeera, Walmart. And basically what I built was this simple AI solution, because we're using AWS, that would recognize content provided and pushed through the API by our citizen journalists and their apps. And it would tag it so that our editors could find and push it out to the right syndicators. Because when you're in a war zone in Bahrain, you're not going to be writing, "Oh, this is a tag." You're not tagging that shit. Right. You're just sending that shit through. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So what the machine learning program did was, on a base level out the box, just tagged the content, and then we just modified it and helped grow that program to a point where it could scale. We went from 50 pieces of content to about 5,000 or 6,000 pieces of content by month 7. And we were helping multiple people get their story out. And some of these stories were horrific. Some of them were amazing. But what it helped me do and grow as a Black professional was, I had this amazing editorial chief editorial that I work with. Her name is Laura Placide. Love you, Laura. She was the most frank Black woman you'll ever meet in your life, but she says it with love. So I worked with her closely to build solutions with her to help her edit faster, help her team push content out faster. And she really helped me learn about, getting that buy-in from your team on stuff, really helped me learn the hard ways. And that's when I started really getting really good at my job. And when I mean good, like deploying really strong products and having a team that would champion me at the same time. Because not only was I always there to get their feedback and buy-in, but at a high business level, I knew what the hell I was doing. I had the context. From there, I went into a company called Fan Exchange, where we took ticketing to the B2B, so allowing people to purchase tickets to their loyalty programs at US Bank, American Airlines, Black Card members. Crazy concepts we're working on over there. We had ideas around potentially using our APIs to create, with Facebook, which was our partner at the time, conversational purchases. So being able to be on Messenger with your dog, be like, "Hey, you want to go to the next game?" And then plop, it shows next upcoming next game that you can buy. COVID changed that.
Right.
COVID shifted that. So we're working on a lot of crazy shit. Amazing team that I work with, from acquisition to all the way to when we became a part of Vivid Seats. Amazing, great family there. Unfortunately, the furlough started happening in June, and ultimately, in January, and ultimately in June, I was furloughed. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, I just made a bag off an acquisition. I'm sitting here. We had a crazy product. I'm really good. I have I had everything I ever wanted, but I wasn't able to do it with the people I wanted to do. So it's an unfortunate scenario. And then Live Nation knocks on my door and says, "Hey, Ahmed, we're building this virtual thing. We want you to build it." And here I am now.
Awesome. That's a great story. It's a lot of ups and downs, and you've shown the interesting perspective of going into entrepreneurship and then deciding to get into corporate, which a lot of people are trying to go the other route, right?
Yep.
They're in corporate, they're trying to get into entrepreneurship.
100%.
So one of the things that we've talked about on different platforms, or even just one-on-one, people getting into tech, right? So for our listeners, one thing that you've preached a lot, and other people have mentioned, is the different ways to get into tech or work at a tech company without necessarily being a developer or an engineer. So talk a little bit about that, because I know we'll be in different rooms and people be like, "So do you build apps yourself, or do you code, or and then you kind of give your explanation." So let's talk about that a little bit.
So it's tough when you're coming into tech. Like, you don't know the roles that are out there. You're lacking the context. You're like, "Oh man, where do I fit?" I think first and foremost, what I tell like anybody that's trying to get into tech, and when I have that conversation with them, I'm like, "Okay, let's take a step back. Why do you want to be working in technology?" And usually that's the piece that people are lacking. It's they don't want to express it, or they just don't want to blankly say it's because for the bag, bro. For the bag. If it's for the bag, I get it, right? Like, that's the thing. And when I talk to a lot of young people trying to get into technology, I try to give them the context of, like, tech isn't just being a developer, it isn't just being a product person, an interface designer. Tech is way more than that. most companies today are technology companies as well.
Yeah.
Those even big insurance companies like Allianz, they have a technology division. They have account managers. They have salespeople. They have lawyers. They have, dude, technology. Getting into technology shouldn't be a person's goal. It's finding out what career path complements their skill set
Yeah.
and what they want to do and invest in. I was talking to this young man recently, and he's like, "Hey, Ahmed, I want to be a developer," and I'm like, "Okay, why do you want to be a developer?" "I want to make money, Ahmed. Like, I didn't come from much," and I'm like, "Dude, I get it, I feel it." And then I walked him through the path of what a developer looks like. So there are times as a developer where you're going to be sitting there working in sprints, building code for 8 to 12 hours, depending on the company you're working at. If you're working at a developer at Facebook, and a developer at Live Nation, and a developer at mid-sized startup A, a developer at, they're all very different, and the roles are very different. The responsibilities are all very different. You might have a developer at Facebook that works on one specific area of the product and rarely touches any other side of it. Whereas at a mid-sized startup, you have a developer that's building the entire product. So I'm like, there is a cliff, right? You're going to spend a significant amount of time doing this, refining your skills. There's a lot of learning outside of it. And you might be spending 8 to 10 hours doing this. And the good news is this can help you build your own business later on. Absolutely. But if you don't have a passion for it, you're going to hit that ultimate cliff, which is you're going to be 50, making just as much as the young guys, and you're not going to progress.
Yeah.
And it's the ultimate truth, right? There is a cliff in tech where it depends how really good you are and how much of a name you've made for yourself. And as a developer, it's not just coding, it's about communicating with your team, building architecture and saying, hey, this is the best way to build it. And not only that, but being able to communicate to non-technical stakeholders and be empathetic enough to understand they don't know.
Right.
So the first step as a young person that's trying to get into a technology field is say, hey, why am I trying to get into this field? Because most of the time, if you don't have the context on the roles, it's usually for money, or it's usually because it provides the most opportunity. If that is the case, there's different routes to get into technology. You could be a design. Do you like design? Do you like building and engineering things? Do you like being hands-on and selling? Being able to go and take a product, learn about that product, understand the values it has, take somebody out to dinner and sell them on your product? And to be honest with you, salespeople make a lot of money in technology, a lot of money. Do you want to test the app and make sure it works? Do you like breaking things and figuring out what's broken? Like, these are questions that, when you're a young tech person, you should be asking yourself. And us as people in technology, I think what we should do is stop sending people fucking articles.
Right.
Like, if people don't have the context of understanding what the hell they fit in, you need to sit down with them and talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. I'm a firm believer of, hey, dude, if I have 30 minutes on my Sunday, I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to walk you through a slide I have with all the potential roles and give you the context you need to make a decision. I'm not sending you a research article, because imagine putting yourself in a position where, as somebody that's been doing tech for 8 years, strip all of that and somebody sends you an article about DevOps and AWS networking. What the fuck are you going to do with that?
Right.
You don't have the context on how this fits into the grand scheme of the puzzle, right? On where this fits into the product, what it entails, spinning up environments. None of that. You have none of that context.
Yep.
So what we need to do as a community, especially on Black History Month, man, like, you don't need to do it for everybody, but stop sending people articles and say, hey, is anybody else on stage have time for this person? If you don't have time for this person, most of us don't. But on the weekends, on the Sunday, getting a group of kids together and just walking them through this, we all have time for that. We all have time for that.
Definitely. And that's what we at Black Tech Talent are here for, to connect with different resources and different individuals like yourself. And that's what the podcast is for as well, so that somebody can hear this and can reach out and connect with you on Instagram or Clubhouse, or send me a direct email and ask for resources, or want to set up a one-on-one meeting. And it's funny because just yesterday on LinkedIn, I was scrolling and somebody had made a post, and it was like, hey, recruiters, it'd be nice if you would let us know when a client passes, right? And then
Yeah.
somebody else comments and he's like, oh, most recruiters just send you spam emails and they don't really care and they don't really help people and things of this nature. And these are both black people in technology. And I'm like, just commented, I'm like, well, that's why Black Tech Talent is community based. We
Yeah.
don't, I said, for most recruiters, that's their
It's their
job.
job.
So
It's their
so
job.
so after that transaction is done, they don't really have any use to continue communication. I said, but we're community based. So we put out content, we
Hmm.
do workshops, we do online events. We're putting
Yep.
together a summit for June. So at the
Hmm.
end of the day, it's in our best interest to make sure everybody else's best interests are met. And we're working on innovating some technology and stuff to kind of streamline and update that process, because the only thing that's updated in applying for jobs is the delivery system. Right now you do it
Right.
online
100%.
instead of in person, but you're still reading a long boring resume, you're still
Yep.
reading a long boring application, and then somebody has to take the time and spend hours to do those and then
Yep.
spend hours submitting them. So luckily, we've now we're at, I think, about 20 corporate clients that we've been working with in
Yeah.
tech. So I've been able to have these high level conversations with major
Mhm.
corporations, and they don't like the process just as much as people applying don't like the process.
It's facts.
So we're working on, streamlining that and fixing that and just innovating in that space. But
Hmm.
that's why when people, me, you had this conversation, when people are like, what's a differentiator between you and these other,
Hmm.
black led organizations? And when I first got asked that, it was like, as a founder, I wanted to be like, you know
Yeah,
what I'm
I
saying?
know. I
You already
know.
know where I want to
I already
go with
know.
it.
You want to go?
But then I just held back and I'm like, I just thought about it in the sense that somebody who doesn't know could understand it. And I'm like, listen, most of these other people in the space are great, but
Uh-huh.
they're nonprofit or they're grant based, so they're not investable, and a lot of them aren't able to scale. The other differentiator is a lot of them are teaching you how to code, and then
Hmm.
they have partnerships with one or two corporations, and
Yeah.
they're able to place a few new students with possible internships, right?
Yeah.
And so they're just they're awesome, but they're limited in comparison to what we're doing. And a
Yeah.
lot of them are trying to build technology and revolutionize it. And
Hmm.
then the team, so you'll get people like me as a non-technical founder,
Yeah.
especially with my last company. I went and took online courses to learn how to code, not so
Hmm.
because I want to do it, but so I can better communicate to my team and have these conversations. And like you said, have context of what I'm reading when I'm looking at articles and stuff of
Exactly.
that nature. So now coming into this company, when we're building out different products or just trying to scale the company and have conversations, I know how to do that better as a leader. But to be honest, it's the background that I do have that makes everything so much different. I come from entertainment, so I know how to build
Yeah.
communities. I
Yep.
come from marketing, so I know how to market my company. We've had a
Yeah.
ton of press. We just
Hmm.
got a $50,000 marketing grant from Star
Congratulations, my
Tribune.
man.
Thank
Big,
you,
big win.
yes sir. And we come from. I know how to make things cool.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so if you can take black culture
Hmm.
with added with technology and entertainment, you're going to have cool. And as long as we
Yep.
have that, we're going to get other people interested. And that's
Yep.
where we're differentiating is the pipeline. So
Hmm.
anybody who outside of review as a competitor is not a competitor, they're a potential strategic partner. I'm not going to teach you how to code. That's not our core function. We may
Yep.
add that later down the road. Right now we want to revolutionize the technology, and we want to get more people represented at these jobs, and we want to help some of these other organizations that are great get the marketing and the look that they need,
Hmm.
because once those people are done with that, they still need a community to go to,
Absolutely.
to build fellowship and find opportunities.
Yeah.
And so
Yo.
that's a huge thing that we're working on.
Nah, man. The reason I connected with you because you're just very frank, man. You know exactly where the needs are. And here's my thing, man. I recruiters, when you've been doing this for 3 to 8 years, you're gonna get a recruiter hitting you up every week.
Yeah.
It's just natural. I've met some good recruiters personally, some really bad recruiters, some recruiters that are my homies today. But the fact is, most tech jobs, and I say this from just anecdotal, like from what I've seen, are referral based, like as in your boy works at like Shopify and he'll refer you because most companies have a referral bonus.
Yeah.
And some companies like Square have a mandate for certain of their employees to refer X amount of people to the company in order to move up.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. When you know they're recruiters, there are internal employees hiring for jobs. When you're submitting your resume into a pool on LinkedIn, on Monster, which I would never recommend, or Glassdoor, like all these other places, LinkedIn is the best if you're trying to submit a resume because you can contact the person and just be like, hey, what up? Like, this is who I am, and make yourself stand out. The thing is, dude, like, you need to build community so that when your friends and your colleagues all spread out one day, you can get a referral into these different companies. And it's always about building friendship first because you spend a lot of time in your job. I've never looked at my colleagues as anything but colleagues. I wouldn't just say that. I would say I would consider them my friends because I've built that relationship with them. I've gotten to know them. Obviously, there is some political pieces there that you have to always keep in mind, but those relationships should be considered and you should nurture those. You should spend time building those, reaching out, saying, hey, dude, how are you doing on the weekend? My designers, I'm like, hey, man, how you feeling? Oh, yo, dude, you need a Clubhouse invite? No problem. I got you. And, going a step above when you're in a leadership position and writing those emails to their bosses and being like, hey, so-and-so has stuck out and has put so much time into this, and don't ask them for their shit. Just send it off. And then that person feels like you got their back.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a leader and it's a black man or woman, you want to be a leader. It's not about being a boss. It's about being that human being that puts everybody on their back and leads everybody to past the Rubicon and really helps everybody eat, fam. That's really leadership 101. It's not as glorious as people want to make it, right?
Yeah.
It's shitty because at the end of the day, you as a leader don't have areas to vent. It's hard to vent because it shows weakness, in my opinion. So you got to effectively get things built and pick up the pieces afterward, right? And that's really where as a black man, we're all going to go through trials and tribulations. It's just, I tell every black kid that wants to get into tech, I'm like, listen, dude, you're going to go into a spot. And I remember talking to one of my Somali cousins about this. I'm like, all your friends are Somali right now. You're going to go into social groups that are different, very different. And you're going to be asking yourself, man, this is different. I want to leave. But in order to expand your person and be more worldly, you got to stay and you got to like be able to learn why they're like that so that you can get your foot in the door, right? And put yourself in these social scenarios because these are going to be the people that are going to refer you one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that's really hard to cope as a black person because personally, when I growing up, like my network is not as great as some of my colleagues. And I'm like, man, that I wish I had a network growing up where like I have friends from like elementary school that are doing big things that I connected with. Like, nah, man, it's not going to play out for you that most likely it's not going to play out for you that way.
Yeah.
If you go into a good university, if you went to a Stanford or Yale, then you by nature you'll have a pretty solid network. But it's a journey to find your place in tech, and it's a hard journey. And I really recommend you and to any young person trying to get into it, man, like make sure you know and you have as much context as possible. And I recommend anybody that's working in tech that's black and you know what I mean, just to be upfront and be spending the time with these kids, because at the end of the day, like you're doing yourself a service too, because this person, when they do get into tech, is another touch point and how we can uplift ourselves. To your point about community, this is a community of us finding our place in the world, right? Especially in technology, right? So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on a few things, the leadership thing and the network thing, and that's that saying, like your network is your net worth, right? And
Yep.
and that's something I used to think about a lot because I didn't go to college, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't go to college as an executive decision as a young 18-year-old. There are a few other factors, but one was growing up poor,
Yeah.
and two is I wanted to go to school for filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And like filmmaking is not something that you need to like go to school for unless you're going to NYU or like
Yeah.
one of the big ones, right? And so, but you got to also have context that this was 2007. So it's like
Yeah.
2007, Minnesota,
Jeez.
pre all of the, tutorials and everything that's out now. Like you have,
Pre-Khan Academy.
but
Pre-Khan Academy.
yeah. So like it wouldn't have necessarily been a bad thing, but I wanted to go to Art Institute. It was like 80 racks. And I'm like, and I was listening to the woman tell me, and I was like, I've never even seen that much money. I grew up poor as a condition of my parents, but me
Yeah.
taking on that debt is staying poor on the condition of myself. And so I always knew I wanted to be in entertainment and be an entrepreneur. And so I kind of just mentally, like, I was like, this is a challenge to see if I can do this, because I can always go to school later. And like now more people are getting that mentality, but that was like, like early on, I had that
Yeah.
mentality of like, let me just hustle and challenge myself, see if I can do it on my own. And obviously I
Yeah.
have. But when you're thinking about, that network, that's something that I thought about later, even as recent as like a couple years ago. Like every couple years I'll think about like what it would have been like if I had went to college. And like
Mm.
that's the only real thing that I'm like would have made a difference, was like the network. But then I'm like, I was really introverted back then. So I
Yeah.
don't even know if I would have networked outside of like other films. You know what I mean? Like knowing
Mm-hmm.
that value at a young age, because
Yeah.
you're in the stress of like keeping your head down, focusing on like your schoolwork and life and all. And I would have been on my own, so it wouldn't have been
Mm.
I'm living at home, I don't have bills, I just go to school and like party. Like it would have really been like you're paying for this yourself, you live on your own. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I would have even really built that network necessarily, like had the foresight to do
Uh,
so.
Half the time.
Yeah, at the time. But it's like, but that's something, like I'll meet people and they did go to school and like they're in fraternities or sororities,
Yeah.
or, and they've
They get the
utilized
experience.
that network. But I think I've built a pretty impressive network on my own with the
I
tools
think
that
you have. I think you
I
have. I think you've done all right. You've done all right, my man. Like
have.
it's to your point. Like it's like you're when you're going to school. If you're like your whole thing is to survive at that point, really, do you have the time to network and get that college experience, right?
Yeah. And just
And
just knowing that somebody could be a knucklehead today and start
mm,
a major
yeah,
corporation or an app or a
yeah,
tech company later, and nurturing those relationships. So that's
hmm
something that I had to, definitely grow into. But for the people listening that are in school currently or thinking about going to school or whatever it may be, like the reason
hmm
why we're telling this story is so that you understand, like, part of your job while you're in school is to network.
yep, absolutely. Make friends, have a few drinks, do a lot of crazy shit with these people, and
Yeah.
it's not gonna be boring like networking like past that, right? Where you're at conferences, listening to people, and then going to drinks with random other product managers. Like that's like networking now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's like it's boring, but in university, it's like authentic. You know what I mean? It's like you're going out, you're meeting people, you're making friends that could be your longtime friends, your short. Like it could be there's a whole world opportunity there.
yep,
But
yep.
the one of the craziest things, though, I'll be frank, is I think I've met a lot of young black people that are like, oh man, I want to be an entrepreneur in technology. I want to do this. I want to do a startup, and I'm like, I'm all for it. I'm like, dude, do it. But I'm a big believer in getting some experience in the field so that you understand the context of what it looks like to have a technology startup. If you worked at a, like, for example, a Facebook for 2 years, it's going to be easier for you to raise money. It's I'm
Yeah,
dead serious. When people are looking at you, institutional investors, banks, like, or just angels, and you tell them, hey, I was a software developer at Facebook, I've built this, and being black is always a -10 on
right.
or -50 on any investment scale. You're putting yourself in a position to be competitive in technology, because the startups that are out there with technical and non-technical founders are usually founders that have X years experience in technology, and have built products at some big companies, some small companies, that when they're going to raise money and people are writing them checks to start off, because these are regular people that got to write you these checks when you're starting off your business.
Yeah,
And $10,000, $20,000 is a lot of fucking money.
yeah,
You got to be able to give them all that reason to write their name on that check, because most people are going to tell you, hey, if you don't, like, let's be real, most people are going to be like, you have a tech startup, but you don't have any experience, unless you want to build the thing, right? Like that's a different story. If you're building your startup from the ground up and you have like you're saying, hey, Ahmed, Mike, yeah, I'm going to build this as an entrepreneur. I'm going to put all my money into it, and I'm going to show an investor a finished product so I can scale it. And Godspeed. But that should be the mind first, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to build up some designs and shop that around and
Yeah.
get investment. That's not going to happen unless you're like somebody that has a successful startup that has been in the game for a while. Like ideas. I want to be blunt when I say this. Nobody steals an idea. People steal products.
Yeah.
Like it's all about executing. It's nobody cares about if you have the bill. If you had if somebody came to me a year ago and said they had the idea for Clubhouse, I'd probably be like, cool, that
Right.
sounds great. But then this year on Clubhouse, when I'm using it and I'm interacting, I'm like, that's a different story. They're in beta.
Yeah.
The former Clubhouse Rohan, he's a former engineer at I think it was Facebook or some other big fan company. These guys built this themselves and then
Yeah.
sourced a bit of money from Horowitz because they had that experience. Like, and this is the thing, like we want to be able to play the game they're playing. We got to speak the same language they're speaking, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool to build an LLC, but before you go to that path, why do you need an LLC is my first question. I'm like, why LLC? Why do you want to go incorporate? You don't have a product.
Right.
That's my first question. They're like, well, I want to get the legal stuff. No, build it, test it, and then incorporate when you have traction. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. In Canada, you'll be fine. I don't know about the States. Different story.
Here it's I mean, it goes both ways, right? If you ask Mark Cuban from Shark Tank and all his other ventures, he says the same thing. People go on there and they're like, we spent all of our money on a patent and legal services to incorporate, and now
that's
we
a lot of money.
have an MVP. And then he's like, yeah, you should just built it and got customers, and then we're worried about that. But legally, if you're operating as a business and you're taking money, you should have some form of incorporation. It's not that much. If you do it on your own through like a legal Zoom, it's like $150. If you want to pay lawyers, you're gonna pay a couple $1,000 depending on how it's set up.
Yeah.
But it depends on where you are with the situation. But for me, that's what's been interesting with my journey, right? So I participated in Founder Gym. I participated in Google for Startups.
Nice.
We just got a semi-finalist letter for another accelerator, and the only reason I'm doing another one is because it's for this current company. The other ones were under premium. But so I'm playing the game, as you just mentioned.
Play the game.
But what's interesting is listening to people talk about the VC and angel investment landscape and building an MVP and kind of doing all these things, and then me coming from more of a pure entrepreneur, like hustler, like survival standpoint of like, this is gonna work whether you invest in it or not. This is gonna work whether it's $1 billion company or it's gonna make me a couple $100,000. Like this is how we're gonna build things. And so getting that kind of polishing with those programs I was in, what it allowed me to do is take what I was already doing and like
context,
mention, understand the language. And so now when I and I'm gonna do a big thing where I talk about this later, but it's like, bro, I built Black Tech Talent with $15. It hasn't even been a year. It won't be a year till July. So it's like $15, bro. So it's like the game they're playing, I learned it, but I'm like my game is actually better, right?
Yeah.
Because the way I play my game is there's no failing for my level. For their level, it may not be as impressive, right? On the VC level.
Yeah.
But I can get to that impressive state. That's not the problem. The problem for a lot of these other startups is they do too much too early, and then they're dead before. Maybe it was a great idea. Maybe it was scalable. Maybe it was investable. They couldn't get that far because of the way they're being taught to go at it. And what you just said, like get a product, sell it. Like it's the same thing if you're hustling. Get the product, sell it. Now a lot of times, in this day and age, I'd say the last 5 to 7 years. Now everybody's talking about not even having a product, just build a client list, or just, or have a product but get pre-sales or whatever it may be.
Ooh, yeah, pre-sales are really nice. Pre-sales are really nice. Like
Yeah.
I would love, honestly, dude, like that's my thoughts. The fact that you built it for $15, like you're thinking with the right space, because you're like, I'm trying to build a business here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build a sustainable business here. Institutional money, like venture capital, like there's a whole bunch of strategy around this. Going to the right VC. Why are you taking the institutional capital? Like there's so much, like in my opinion, I would say if you're not making like a couple million in revenue and you don't have a product, like if your problem is scaling your product, like say you have a SaaS company, your CMS is selling $1 million to more clients, and say you have 20 different clients wait on a waiting list because you can't service them because your support team can't deal with that right now. I would consider VC money at that point, because you're like, I need, these clients are worth, if we were to pick them up, $10 million. We can't pick, we have $10 million sitting there. And in order to get to that $10 million, we need $1 million. And you know that a VC will give you that $1 million and that they're only going to ask for X amount, because you know exactly where you're taking that money.
Right.
You know there's money on the table. So even if you give away a chunk, you know that that chunk you gave away is worth that $10 million sitting on the table.
Yep, exactly.
Like this is it's a simple game. Like I don't get, like I'm a product guy. I'm a pure product guy. I believe in building great teams and building great people and building things that make sense. Um, it's tough for me to cope with the whole concept of, I want to build a startup just to go and exit. Like it's not, like, for me, like it's bigger than that, right? Because when you're building a company, you're building a community. Like there's nothing more pure than a person that comes on and works on something that you believe in and puts their time and life into a product like that, right? And it's there's a beauty to that when you're starting up. And then being able to sell people on your product and getting them to come on your journey with you. Like the journey of building a product is more beneficial than the end result, in my opinion, for most people. Even if you exit, even if you don't, the fact that you have it on your resume that you've built this, come on. There's little things that a corporate job at Facebook can do. Like Facebook loves entrepreneurs, Netflix loves entrepreneurs, Live Nation loves entrepreneurs, and there's people that look for entrepreneurial developers, product managers, and those are the highest in demand skill sets.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's the information, learning how to play the game, but not necessarily because you want to play it by their rules. But so you can't change the rules to something unless you know how it's played in the beginning, right? And that's 100%. And that's one of the things I've been able to do, and it's been working. That's why everybody's like you're growing so fast, and it's like, yeah, because I figured out your game. I already know my game, and now it's just executing. And so those things are going beautifully. But that's part of the you build it one way, and then it's like you're like, people are like, the funny thing is, like, people be like, how much runway do you have? And it's like, I build my stuff so that if I'm not making anything, I still have runway. I don't have to worry about what I'm saying, shutting down. I'm still here. I'll pay my hosting, pay all this stuff, and I'm good to go. We'll figure it out.
I got runway.
I got runway. I got more runway than the guy with $1 million in funding, because that whole million is spoken for already.
It's spoken for already. It's crazy. Like there's a story about Evan Spiegel raising $300 million, and he was interviewed or something like that in a Series C or D or whatever. And he's like, people are like, oh, are you rich? And he's like, dude, I got $20 to my name. Exactly. There's a Snapchat founder, and I'm like, this is true, because that money is spoken for. They were trying to monetize. They need to build an incredible amount of architecture, hire a shit ton of very expensive developers, very expensive talent. Like it's crazy, because I feel like in the tech scene right now, like companies are like, people put values on people raising institutional capital.
Yeah.
Like, dude, X company raised, $100 million or $600 million. They're not talking about the unicorns that exist that are literally scaling with their revenue. So they're making more revenue off of a lot less cash influx. So when they do eventually exit, those startups, those founders and those employees and those dude, they're rich. They're
Yeah.
rich. They
Yeah.
gave away less and they built more.
Yeah.
It's insane. There are unicorns. There's a few out there today that I think are killing it. Um, my personal opinion, there's a small company, it's a podcast company that does a recording and stuff like that. Zencaster is killing it. Scaling Smart. Um, Clubhouse. Clubhouse is like there's rumors and murmurs about it, but apparently they got their last round at $1 billion valuation,
Yeah. I heard that. I heard
and
that.
that nine people,
Yeah.
nine people, nine people are managing and maintaining this app right now. So like I want people to think about that. The
Yeah.
most popular app on the planet right now for social media is being built and managed by nine people.
Yeah. So let's bring it back to, you know, because it is Black History Month. So let's talk about, a topic that's been widely spoke about regarding Clubhouse. So, the difference in when you're a white founder, raising capital for these companies, and the fact that like Black culture continuously ends up building them.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's this conversations about how much cultural equity we own in a lot of these successes for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. What is the I want to word this perfectly. What is the size and cost of our influence? Like how much is it worth? And when I look at Clubhouse and I look at when Felicia, Horowitz's wife, she brought on all the musicians, the Black community on this app, gave it some flavor. I'm going to look back to last night where we had the Japanese community, the Asian community come onto the app, and I saw something very beautiful where Bomani and a few Black musicians were playing a concert, and it was like the biggest room on Clubhouse was 5,000 people. And I'm looking to the other rooms, and it's like how to make $1 million. Da, 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 da. But the more vibrant room was two cultures coming together and having a beautiful concert and just being there and being present. That's what Clubhouse wants.
Yeah.
That's what Clubhouse wants, that kind of community. And I hate to say it, but Black technology has been, and Black consumerism on technology has been the forefront of scale and growth for a lot of companies. And it sucks because these are the same companies that potentially won't give you a job because you're Black, or their decisions are inherently built in a way that don't really support our communities. Um, how many times have I been in the community where I've seen companies dedicate hundreds of $1 millions to Black and African American developers, creators to help empower them, but after that press release is out, it doesn't seem to happen, or there doesn't seem to be anything that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the question we should ask. And I think Black History Month, I want to quote James Baldwin. To his point he made, he's like, how long are we going to wait for your progress? And
Yeah.
that's when I make the it's the you're pointing to that community. Like, I don't want to wait for somebody to try to help and uplift me. I'm going to sit here and know that I own cultural equity on these applications. And then we should force that hand and be like, where are our jobs? We don't want this mouthwash of like getting a $400 million press release. We don't want that. We want opportunity. And what you're doing, what I'm doing, what all of us are doing, uplifting our community is going to give us an opportunity. And when we knock on that door for a Clubhouse, and when we in these companies, it's gonna end, bro. It's gonna end. And I
Yeah.
really think when there's more of us there, and we can tailor those decisions, then trust me, I think it's gonna be the world's gonna look different in 20 years.
Yeah. I think too that, like I mentioned earlier with premium and being in some of these Black music exec rooms, a lot of people who have power, who have money that could be angels or a friend and family level investor who can afford a 10,000, 20,000, even a
Yeah.
50,000 investment and is relevant to the
Yeah.
company. They don't understand even the relevance to the data. So when we go on these things and we give away our data, we're not understanding even what we're giving away, right? And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
the thing is, the real question becomes, if you're looking at it from a pure business standpoint, how do we make it cool to invest in ourselves? That's the real question. Because if somebody comes and says, I'm going to build Clubhouse exactly the same, but this will be black owned. We will only take black investors. We don't even have access a lot of times to our own celebrities
No.
because their managers and agents are white and their lawyers are Jewish.
Yep.
And they're the ones passing along saying, hey, you should invest in this. Hey, you should get on this.
Yeah.
And then that's how it ends up flowing, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you look at even like you mentioned, some of these rooms that have become a millionaire, meet a millionaire, how to
Da
become
da
an
da da.
influencer, blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
Like if you look at, because I always go in and look at who's following who, and you can literally see like this person was nominated by Meek Mill, and then you look and you find out that's Meek Mill's agent. So
Mhm.
if you start looking at it like that in correlation to the influencers and celebrities, you can literally see that it's the famous people who around the business professionals they trust that are bringing each other on, and then they're creating these become a millionaire rooms or pitch your song or pitch your film, and those are
Yeah.
the people who obviously have the influence, and a lot of times they'll listen to them before they'll listen to us.
You know what the craziest thing is though? Like there are guys like Dwayne Reeves a day. There's a lot of young black engineers that work at these fan companies that are millionaires because of their RSUs.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to stop the celebrity culture love, I think, in our opinion, and really start focusing on the brothers and sisters that are killing it. Like X Tech with X is fucking, she was just featured on BET. She's at Google, changing the way machine learning works and how we can reduce that racial bias.
Yeah.
Like these are people that we should be looking at to help us with these solutions, right? Like I'm not here to say that musicians need to drive the way and drive the innovation, drive the cap. Like they do have the money, yes, but it's not all on them, right? We have a huge community here and we need to educate them, right? Empathetically speaking, it's just these guys are growing. They've come from a place and made a lot of money that most people haven't. They
Right.
made, like, it's incredibly difficult.
Right.
So give them their flowers. They're learning. They've trusted people to help keep them their success, but they need to see, and their managers need to see, is us that are incredibly successful, and we can have those conversations easily, and we can speak for our community that way. The best of us should speak in the language to musicians and to celebrities in a way and say, hey, to their managers, this is what we do, this is who we are, and we can make money. And their managers, trust me, they speak one language, that's money. And that's how we can get the conversation started. I like Meek Mill, the game, they're all great at what they do. They love their communities, but they're also not idiots. They've seen how many people reach out to them. Millions of people reach out to them, man. Like, so yeah, I feel it. But I also think the responsibility is on like all the young upcoming creators that are at Google, at Facebook, at Live Nation. Like all of us are responsible and need to uplift their communities because we have the context, we have the background, we have the fucking money. So put your money where your mouth is and start investing in black businesses. And start educating these celebrities on which ones to invest in. And that's really not being gatekeepers, but uplifting our community, investing in our community, buy black, and make sure that we understand why we're buying black quality.
Yeah.
That's it. Like if somebody's not there yet, we can educate them and get them there, and then we can invest in them, right? We don't need these celebrities. I'm sick and tired of these celebrities need to do this. No, man, they don't. They don't. Did you go to school? Did you do 8 years at Google and Facebook and Live Nation? You did all of that, my man. And you telling me you can't give these guys context to be successful? It's all on us right now. It's on you, me, all these creators and technology sophomores or fucking people that have been in the game for a while. Like it's really on us, right? There's been interesting concepts floating around, like VC building a fund and shit. Like I'm not in the business of that. I'm in the business of like, how do we uplift their community? And if it's just you, spend some time with somebody on a Sunday and give them context on what they're doing. If there's a dope black business, like this young man Samuel has his business on Clubhouse, is very brilliant. How can we invest money into him?
Right.
How can we give this guy like 10K, 20K to get his shit started? Like that's like, these are small things. I'm telling you, there's more black people on Clubhouse that have disposable income than any other platform I've seen in a while.
Yeah, definitely.
Like let's start putting let's put our money where our mouth is and start investing in these creators and start doing it in groups where literally it could be 10 of us putting $100,000 into a black business from a black gentleman, black woman that has the context. It wouldn't be hard, dude. It wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think the biggest thing, and especially here in America, like celebrities are worse. Like celebrities are more important than politicians. You know, like
Weird.
it's a crazy. I think what it is like, here we have what they call the American Dream,
Yeah.
and then along with the American Dream, then you have, because obviously most people can't access that immediately, so then you have the rags to riches story and like the
Hmm.
underdog story, right? And like specifically when it comes to uh music, and then if you look at hip hop, that's typically always the underdog, the rags to riches, and
Yeah.
then it's the American dream of wealth, the cars, the women or the men, having
Yeah.
your pick of kind of how you want to live. And
Yeah.
so they influence things. Like the first time I really like broke things down was when I saw the wave of reality shows really influencing people.
Yeah.
And what I realized is, especially with, like, if you're familiar with Bad Girls Club, is that it's what it does is people are at a place where they're like, yo, I'll never be Beyonce, I'll never be Jay-Z, I'll never be, Michael Jackson, but I can spit on somebody and be called a bad girl and get on TV. And so that shifted every, like, the whole mind frame of what a celebrity is, what an influencer is, because initially a celebrity, like, when with the invention of TV, there are
Mhm.
only a few actors, right?
Yep.
And then with music, there were only a few superstars. Like
Yep.
there was no way for you to get on the radio unless you were super. It's hard now
It's
in
hard now.
2021, right?
It's incredibly difficult. Yep.
So it's like you were considered a superstar. You had to have a talent. You had to have a team. You had to have all these things.
Yep.
And now it's like I don't have to have any of that. I can just get famous for something. I can go viral. I
Hmm.
can, be attractive. I can, whatever. And so, at the end of the day, they just, as much as we want to say that they shouldn't have that much influence, I know here in America they just
We
do.
have a lot.
They just
Yeah, dude.
do.
And there's nothing wrong. And honestly, dude, like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, if you want to spin on a chick and call yourself a bad bitch and want to make your money, get your money, boo boo, at the end of the fucking day.
Right.
But like, listen, I don't care how you get it. I'm one of those type of dudes. Like, if you are getting yourself out of a situation that's been imparted into you due to not having the opportunity of the new deal, the whole concept of redlining, the reason why hoods exist is because when the new deal happened, the banks were giving out loans to everybody to help get them out the depression, get them out that income gap. It wasn't given to black people in specific areas,
Yep.
and those were black hoods. So when everybody in America built and bought equity, black people were stuck in those
Yeah.
hoods because they weren't given loans to move out those fucking hoods and to
Yep.
build, right? And those homes are worthless now.
Yep.
And
And it's still happening today, by the
it's
way,
still happening.
even though
Redlining,
it's illegal.
it's
Because,
still happening.
and this is why people understanding tech and understanding data is important, because I talked to somebody who's a real estate agent, and I've actually studied real estate and took courses and stuff like this. But I'm talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, he's saying he doesn't think these things exist," which is BS, because I actually read the official book from Kaplan University where you get certified as a real estate agent, and they cover redlining and the Civil Rights Act and
Dude,
blockbusting and all
it's
these things.
bullshit.
But
It's bullshit.
besides him saying that, it's just like, yo, even if you really haven't seen it or experienced, everything is done automated. So whoever created the software says these areas are worth this, blah blah blah,
Yep.
and so you don't have to have a guy in front of you saying that's a black neighborhood,
Well,
don't lend to
you know,
them. It's already built into the system. That's why it's called systemic
it's
oppression.
crazy, dude.
It's built in.
Bro, you know what the craziest thing is? A black neighborhood with a similar amenities, crime rate as a white neighborhood is worth. A white neighborhood is property worth is at least 40% higher than that black neighborhoods.
Yep.
When I read that, and I'm gonna send you this YouTube link. She's phenomenal. She breaks this down, but like, dude, I was like, damn. So when I hear about girls and men doing some crazy shit to make it out of that, girl, I don't mind. That's how you go spit on somebody, call somebody the worst words in the world. If you want to get out of that situation, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Get yourself to a better place, because they're building generational wealth anyways. If they're investing it right, doesn't matter how they got it, because every single thing on this planet, no, every single thing in the United States, I wouldn't say the planet, is really literally built to be like keeping them poor, bro. Like I'm all for black success, and I'm all for black empowerment and empowerment for all sides, dude. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter if it's like if you're stripping for your money, if you're building amazing architecture for your money. We need to all be there together. We need to all build a sense of community and get ourselves out of this scenario, especially African Americans, dude. Like, out of that scenario where you're put in a place where the system is literally there to keep you poor.
yeah,
So whatever way you need to get out of it, and technology is definitely an avenue. But dude, there's no difference. And I'll be honest here. If you invest your money right, being a software developer and being a stripper too, there's really like you can live the same kind of lifestyle and have the same kind of generational wealth if you play your cards right. And we
yeah,
all need to understand that,
yeah,
right?
definitely. And there are, we don't want to judge people getting out of their situations, but some people are built for certain things and some aren't.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid going into something you aren't built for, because you want to, the goal is to empower yourself, and you
Yeah.
can't be empowered if you're in a situation where you feel powerless. That's
100%.
what I tell people, because we
100%.
have plenty of conversations about OnlyFans and all these
Yeah.
different types of things, and people get sensitive about it because they feel a way, whether you're for it or against it.
Yeah.
But when you're talking to somebody that's of intelligence in different levels, so
Yeah.
whether it's emotional intelligence or
Hmm.
other things, the real thing is, when you come out of this and you get your bag, are you going to
Hmm.
be good, and will it be worth it to you? It doesn't matter what
Exactly.
anybody else's
No, not at
opinion
all.
is, or what they're trying to do. And do you feel, when you do it, do you feel empowered, do you feel indifferent, or do you feel powerless? Because not everybody is built to do the same thing,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are
Exactly.
doing things they're not built for, to try to get the bag, and they end up fumbling it anyways, right?
Yeah, man.
So that's one of the things. But ultimately, the for all of our listeners, the point that we're getting at is that, black people have to come together, and we have to focus on, group economics.
Yep.
And the example that I gave, when it comes to the celebrities, is not necessarily because they're famous, or, like Nimali said, they have experience in it, whether it's investing or just supporting, but it's group economics, and people who have large influence can influence large groups. And if you have that, then you don't have to have a lot of money. There's only two ways to really scale, and it's either if you have the enough influence to move people, to move culture, or unless you have enough money to tap into the culture, right? And so those are kind of the two things that we're always battling when doing this. And without one of those two things, or both of them, then we're always going to have to tap into white money.
Yeah. And listen, if you're tapping into any kind of money, and you just need to have a strategy and just need to know why you're doing it. That's it, dude.
Yep.
Like here's the thing. Like 12%, or is it 12 or 13% of the United States is black.
13.4.
13.4. There you go. When the majority of the population isn't the same color or skin as you got to understand you're going to have to tap into that regardless, right? You have to make ways through whatever you can. My whole thing is, as a community, especially during Black History Month, and is to just focus on the things that make us better, which is context.
Yep.
Giving everybody context on any opportunity that they want to take, and letting them make that decision, and uplifting them if they're good at it. And if they're not good at it, putting them in a position where they can learn and get good at it. That should be our motto.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we're doing. That's, I'm hoping over the next 5 years we'll bring in over $2 billion a year annually to the black community through what we're doing via income and investments. And we'll just, like I said, those other companies that maybe, become strategic partners with us, to educate more, and to really have a pipeline that starts with the youth, and ends with the veterans who want to come back and become mentors or investors or whatever it may be, and the things that are going on. So it's definitely part of the plan, and it's what we're building over here at Black Tech Talent. So I want to get into some of the cultural differences when it comes to like diversity and inclusion between, you know, United States and Canada, and kind of like what were some of the obstacles you felt like you may have faced being black, with some of the endeavors or some of the things you haven't faced because it's just different culturally.
I think we definitely face the same kind of issues here in Canada. It's just more nuanced. It's the more Californian flavor of it's a more Californian flavor of hate. I think when we're looking at diversity inclusion, like I've always been either the one or second black man in my faculty. It's been, you know, difficult in that regard because there's always a conversation around, you know, referrals, right?
Hmm.
And I think you know when you're trying to refer somebody and they're black, there's a different kind of like feeling there. You feel me? And it's
Hmm.
like you got to explain yourself, or you got to like it's so different, so nuanced. It's like the hate is weaving in the conversation, right? Where there's more questions asked if they are black. Um, you know, I've definitely taken my punches and taken my hits, but I've gotten up for a minute. And I think the Canadian flavor is a little bit more watered down, but it's still there. The American flavor of it is definitely different. In the Valley, it's very different. And it's just a whole socioeconomic thing. Like when you're a black man, you're coming from like where I came from. You know what I mean? Like, um, and I act a certain way, and I wear my hoodie. And you know, in my past, I've had people saying, "Ahmed, man, why do you wear a hoodie like outside of work and during to work, man? Like, you know, it's kind of ratchet though." I'm like, did you just tell your product manager wearing a hoodie is ratchet? When half the team here, the development team is not wearing a hoodie. I'm like, it's a different flavor to it.
Yeah.
It's definitely it makes you mad. But my recommendation is here, there are always going to be people in your company that are up there that you can make champions of, right? Like at Live Nation, like I have a few EVPs that champion me because they know what I stand for and they know exactly where my head's at with, you know, diversity and inclusion. I actually chair it for Ticketmaster Universe right now, trying to find a speaker. So if you are a black woman, black man, want to share your story, please let me know. Um, but yeah, no, it's different flavor, dude. And I think when comparing it to the States, like I don't have much context. I read about it every day and
Yeah.
I hear about it on Clubhouse and I like it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. It's
Yeah.
mind blowing. But it's
It's
because
very primitive, you know.
it's yeah.
It's a very primitive level of hate, and there's so many levels to it
Mhm.
that it would just take you forever. Like literally, it's a
Yeah.
situation where somebody will punch you, and then you'll be like, "Ow," and they'll be like, "Oh, I thought like that doesn't hurt black people because black people are."
Yeah.
You know, they're stronger, they're bigger, they don't feel pain. That's literally a thing in our hospitals, like to this day, where they're like, they won't give us certain medications because they'll either assume you're an addict and you're just trying to get pills, or because you don't feel as much pain as white people, therefore you don't need it. And that's like a thing to this day.
That's fucked up.
Um,
That is
like
fucked up.
because of slavery, because they're like, because their whole thing is like, oh, we beat you, we whipped you, we did all these things. Like we get bit by like a mosquito and cry, and like we did all these things to you, and like you still
Mm.
survived and you still lived. Therefore, you must not feel pain the same way we feel pain. And it's because they've never actually felt the pain that we've been inflicted and then had to survive through it, right? So that's why a
That's
lot
fucked.
of us are
That's
getting
fucked.
killed by police when they're choking us, body slamming us, doing all these things. And they're like, oh, damn, did I just kill him? And it's like,
Yeah.
because when they come with us with more
Aggression.
aggression and strength than they need. You know, it's like me. I'm 5'11, so I'm not super tall, but it's like I'm 5'11. I'm a big dude. My
Mm.
shoulders are the width of a doorway, and so like even as a kid, like you play fight with people and they hit you hard because they're like you're bigger, so it doesn't hurt. And it's like I still have
Yeah.
muscle and
It's
skin and
wild.
tissue, and it's like I still feel the pain. You may not be able to hurt me as much or do as much damage, but if we're playing and I'm not being as aggressive with you, then it's like it's still gonna hurt all the same, right? But like in America, it's still a thing. So we still have very primitive. So it's not even like it's just very primitive ways of thinking still to this day.
I,
And the more we survive, the
yeah,
worst it gets. There was a Waffle House incident where a white shooter went in, and he was in there like trying to kill people, or maybe did kill people. I don't remember exactly, but he was in there with an assault rifle, and a black guy overpowered him, took the gun, got him up out of there. Police came, and a guy commented on the video, and he's like, "See, that's why we have to be armed against black people. Look how strong he was to take down somebody that was armed, and he wasn't armed." So it
he was
becomes,
a hero.
instead of saying he was a hero, it's like, see, look at them. They have these superhuman strengths, and that's why we have to be prepared to like take them down. And then when it comes to, the topics we're talking about, technology, corporate stuff like that, then as you mentioned, you have to explain yourself more. You have to be better than everybody else, and it's still like a question. And it's
You
it's
gotta
like this thing.
you got to code switch, bro. Like you got to code switch. Like it's fucked up. I hate to say it, you got to code switch because
Yeah,
the craziest thing is like the, I don't think there's an attitude of empathy when it comes to like a lot of these corporate zones. Like people are not going to try to relate, understand your story and why you dress the way you dress. Like I dress the way I dress because this is my culture. Like, culturally, this is what I admire. This is what I think looks good. You feel me? I don't have an $8 coffee stuck up my ass. I don't want to go. You know what I mean? I want to go there. I want to listen to my Dre, and I want to be productive, and I'm going to be rolling with empathy. That's come as you are. It should be the attitude, right?
yeah,
But that's not typically the attitude. And I want to tell a lot of young people that I can do this today because I've been doing this for a while, and I've built up the stripes to do whatever the fuck I want.
yeah.
So, you know what? You want to fire me? Sure, I'll find another job. I don't give a fuck.
Right.
But I will say, I like seriously, like I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
If I like the one thing I hate about it is code switching is in the finance sector. Like I applaud any black woman, black man that's in the finance sector because that is a sector where it's rampant,
yeah,
where you have to code switch. You have to straighten your like they it's like implicit in the culture of stock trading. Like I've heard horrendous stories from the sisters in the finance industry. In the tech industry, there are horrendous cases. Like for example, at Google recently, a data scientist lead got fired because she released findings that there was programs in Google that were racist. She got fired, and
yeah.
two of her team members resigned.
I heard about that.
And there's more flavors of racism in tech. It's like code switching is a big one. Being able to walk into a room and automatically feel like, hey, like I've had this incident happen way back, but when we had a client one time who was South based, right? And I was leading the project, and we actually had a white equivalent of mine speak. That's happened.
Yeah.
That's happened. There's also like speaking with individuals on a call and you're wearing a hoodie during Zoom and people just look at you like, damn, what the fuck? But you're wearing the same thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like it's just like,
wild.
it's wild, right? And like, I could see how that discourages some people. I'm just like, dude, like this is happening. How can I uplift more of my people? And I keep it moving.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you're a black man, a black woman, and you're a visible minority, fuck that. Because I know a lot of Asian people get it pretty bad in the valley too. Like they get it pretty fucking bad in the valley too. Dude, if you feel, talk your shit if you feel this way. If they fire you, they fire you. Honestly, like vent these concerns, document them, make sure that you have all your information ready. And when HR comes around, and if that conversation does happen, you're not at the right place. You're not at the right place. It's not good for your headspace. Like when we're talking about mental illness, we're talking about issues that are already within our community. You don't want to be working somewhere for the bag if it's making you worse for it.
Yeah.
Especially if you know these people are just not even considered of your identity. You're not going to get a recommendation from this place. Just leave.
Yeah. One thing that, I've, spoken on a bunch of panels and stuff like this. And after, one of my most recent ones, before we shut down, some of the guys came up and they're like, man, you're swagged out and you dress how you want, and you speak how you want. Like, how'd you get to that place? And I'm like, well, first off, I'm the boss. Like, I'm the CEO of my own company, so I do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I said, but second off, there's a level of confidence you have to have when you're making moves.
Yeah.
And you have to understand what you're playing at. So if somebody is going to not hire you, fire you, or prejudge you
Mhm.
based on the way you dress and the way you move, especially if it's not anything explicit, it's not
Yeah.
anything crazy, it's not anything
Yeah.
political, even, it's just you with your skin color and your background wearing that offends me, or it doesn't hold up
Yeah.
standards. That's a, like you just mentioned, that's not some place you want to be in the first place, you
To
know.
give some context here, like if you're working in a environment that's super professional, where everybody's wearing suits, different story. But if you're in tech, where everybody wears where the fuck they want, I've literally had my good friends of mine that are developers that I work with that literally wore onesies, like pajamas to work, and just started coding.
Yeah.
Technology is an industry. Typically, it depends on your company, but most companies are very free, like hoodies, sweatpants, just get the job
Well,
done.
if you're gonna
And if you're
sit
pitching,
for 10, 12 hours in front of a computer, why wouldn't you be comfortable?
100%. And not only that, but the bigger piece is, hey, if you know that there's not a client meeting happening where you have to dress up, who gives a fuck what you're wearing? And everything else is internal. In tech, it's very free flowing. Um, However, there are scenarios. I want to be very clear here. If there is a scenario in technology where you do have to sit down with the client and you have to be presentable, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if you're,
I would even change that word presentable though.
how would you phrase it?
I would say professional, maybe based on the
Professional.
standards of being professional. But
Mm-hmm.
as we know in our culture, multi millionaires,
Mm-hmm.
they're in a hoodie. That's presentable to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it
Yep.
looks good and it is, and there's hoodies that cost thousands of dollars, right? So I would say, you know, if you're a lawyer or like you said, you're dealing or a culture, if it's a cultural thing, if you're meeting
Yep.
with some clients that they have a
Mm-hmm.
certain standard and expectations, you want to
Yep.
do it not because you're conceding, but because you're respecting the
The
culture.
Yeah, exactly. The work culture there, and it's different. It's like you trying to empathize. Man, I'd wear a kufi and like my tinted glasses. I got no fear on any of that. Like I like my team today. Like I'm in a good place. I have a wonderful boss and a wonderful leadership that let me, express myself and let me work in a way where it's constructive. And shout out to them. Shout out to Live Nation for fostering that environment for me. Um, yeah, dude, like I wear a kufi and glasses to work and be on these Zoom calls with VPs. I got no problem doing that. But
Yeah,
yet again, it's all about being able to be in a space where don't do the most like I do.
right.
But just make sure that if you feel uncomfortable and you feel like you're being disrespected and you feel like it's coming from that kind of place, go with your gut. Make sure you get your affairs in order, leave respectfully, and show that like you can be you're rising above it.
Yeah,
Like it's one of those things where we shouldn't make excuses for being discriminated against. There should never be an excuse for discrimination.
yep.
Is the frank answer.
There was we're doing black employee retention
Mm-hmm.
research right now.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions that we ask on the survey is what's more important to you, money or culture? And it's always been culture has had the highest percentage.
Yeah.
And we don't coach people through answers. We don't explain what that means.
Yeah.
We're just like, what's more? Because and me and you had this conversation offline where it's like it's hard to
Yeah.
explain to white people what culture means when we say that,
Mm-hmm.
and like how near and dear it is to us. And so that's part of the problem with it being inclusive is
Yeah.
there's just these nuances that they're just always going to miss the mark on unless
Yep.
they begin to understand that. And that's why I put that question in the survey so
Mm-hmm.
that when I talk to them and I mention culture, I can also go to a data point to say you may not understand what I'm saying just yet. I'm going to break it down to you, but I want
Yep.
to show you that I'm not speaking for black people. This is what they've also said based on this survey, that culture is more important than money.
Mm-hmm.
People want to get the bag, but they want to get the bag comfortably. So if everybody's being non-inclusive, you won't know that because everybody's got to work, everybody's got to eat. But another question asked on the survey is, would you leave your current company for a more inclusive one? And 100% of the people who took the survey so
100%.
far said yes.
100%. 100%. Culture is everything. You're working there for most of your life. Like having a culture where you can go out in the park and have a drink with your colleagues, where you can respect others religious beliefs, but you're having a good time, and there's a mutual level of respect and I'd say inertia that comes from that. Because like culture, good culture, and an environment that's not toxic fosters better products.
Yeah.
People will work longer, people will work harder, people will push things out. Like imagine you're sitting in a work culture where half the people are like, I don't want to get this guy's approval or get this guy's thoughts on this because he's a bit of a dick, or he's a little bit like, you know what I mean? He's a little white collar racist. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
can't like it's not great, right? That's why you need good culture. You need to set boundaries. You need to do all these things so people can work in an environment that's productive. If they're going to be sitting here and you have like a high performer who's like incredibly like, he's an outlier and he's just killing the culture, or she's killing the culture, then you got to really do something about it. HR needs to step up there, right? They need to be like, this is wrong. Make an example out of that person, because at the end of the day, like I read this amazing study about how one bad actor in an organization can shift productivity down in a way that's amazing, even if that person's a high performer.
Yeah. Yeah, because what it does is, it's number one, it sets a bad example. So instead of making
Absolutely.
an example out of them, you give permissions to others to do the same,
Yep.
and then you show other people that there's no punishment for that, but then they're
Yeah.
still worried about being punished for other lesser things.
Mhm.
So that's totally gonna make you be like, oh, okay, well, what kind of environment am I in when I didn't even want to report this person, then I did, and then
Yeah.
nothing happened. Everybody else sees it's happening.
Yep.
They're not getting in trouble, but if I turn in this assignment late, I could be fired. Or
Yep.
if I do this, or if I come to work with a hoodie, or if I, these
You're
type of
gone.
things are an issue. And at the end of the day, it's business. Like, we're talking about business. Like, Black Tech Talent is a for-profit company. So when we talk to these companies, we're doing business with them, right? And so we want to talk from a business standpoint too. And being inclusive is worth it to your bottom line as well.
100%. 150%. I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Um so now let's talk about, pivot to a little bit more of the Live Nation stance. We've kind of went through your history with your parents and going to school, launching a
Yeah.
product. So with Live Nation, kind of what was your start there? What are some of the cool things you've worked on that you can talk about? Obviously, you can't talk about everything, but what are some of the cool things that you've been able to do and launch, and just kind of that work culture?
Oh, dude, the culture's great. So I'm actually a part of the Live Nation Ticketmaster Universe team. So we're working on virtual events. We just recently did Dua Lipa. We did Megan Thee Stallion, Little Uzi with the title team. That was fantastic, as well as Niall Horn, and it's been crazy. Like the whole teams come together and really are of the mind to support artists during this tough time and to really make a statement, right? I think, our commitment, and Rapino said this the best: when things come back, it's going to be the roaring 20s. And, live events are going to come back stronger than ever.
Oh yeah.
And yet again, I think where I'm at with what we're doing is just continue chugging along and pushing out a great product. And it's not going to stop at Dua. It's going to continue growing, and we're going to make more immersive experiences with our partners. And with the Veeps acquisition, this has been there's going to be a bigger uh presence on the market for virtual, and we're going to make this happen, right? And I'm
Yeah.
I'm super excited. uh that's really where I can't go too deep into
Yeah.
things, but I'm really excited, and I know the team is super excited too. And I know like the organization's really been focusing on this whole piece around being able to help artists in this tough time. And I know Rapino has been really really strongly voiced, and there's articles all about that and the comms all around that. In terms of diversity, I think right now I'm chairing the diversity effort for my division. And my thing is I'm reaching out to a lot of speakers this month to figure out like if there's any Black men or women that want to come speak and help my team and the organization learn more about how we can build a architecture of inclusivity. That's really the theme now, and really just opening up more volunteer efforts for my team to go out and give back in a way that's meaningful to different communities and different causes that make sense for us. So really, really, really focus on that piece right now on my end, because you want to be the change that you want to see is my personal belief.
Yep.
And we have I've been given the platform to do so. So I thank Live Nation for that. And yet again, I'm super excited for this year, and I'm super excited to keep on getting these dubs, man. These
Yeah.
W's are what keep it going, man.
Definitely. So with that said, do you feel like a lot of pressure being in the position you're in with the virtual stuff, because Live Nation is just such a huge machine,
Mm-hmm.
and with not being able to be active in certain areas with the live events,
Mm-hmm.
and even just knowing when to get back to that, does that add a lot of pressure to make this virtual thing work at such a magnitude?
Well, like yet again to quote Rapino here too, like we're looking at all options here, right? Virtual right now is for me been something that we're learning, we're growing, we're scaling. Like it's not there's no pressure, man. There's no pressure at all because we know that it's all about iterating and it's all about learning how to make people successful. Whatever sticks, right?
Yep.
As a product person, it's easy to pivot and push forward, but right now it's sticking, right? So we're in a good space and we're industry leaders here. So I'm not too worried. Like it is a big ask from a value proposition uh, spot to like do live streams work, and during that and innovating during a pandemic is always a bit of like it's a bit jarring,
Yeah.
but this is what I do. I love being in, and I want to make sure I'm very clear here. I love being in fucked up scenarios and taking out
Right.
those challenges and being able to be better for it with an amazing team. So that's what I do, and that's what I love doing. So um no pressure, just a big
Awesome.
challenge.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, I want you to any parting words you have, go ahead and share with our community. Go ahead and share your social and everything like that, and we'll wrap it up.
uh, so you can follow me at Nimali on Clubhouse. On social, it's Nimali Ahmed, Nimali Ahmed Ahmed. Um, One of my parting words is Mike. Thanks for fucking having me on.
For sure.
Looking forward to jumping on Clubhouse later on, talking some crap with you later, and I'm
Yes,
with
sir.
it. And my parting words to the community, especially in a young Black woman or man that wants to get in technology, um, feel free to hit me up. Just be able to get the context, be able to learn and understand why you want to get to tech. As Drake, sorry, as Paul Wall said, well, drive slow, homie. You'll get to your
Yeah.
destination ultimately, but you want to make sure that you do what's right for you and what you're comfortable with doing. And regardless of whatever it is, it requires hard work. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much it, Mike. I'm really shitty at this parting thing, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, yeah, that's my 2 cents there.
You've dropped so many gems during this conversation, man. It's all
Oh,
good.
it's
I'm sure.
Clubhouse type of dropping gems, dropping
There we
gems,
go.
PTR. Like, no,
Yes.
but always here for it, man.
So,
Always here for it,
yes,
bro. I think
sir.
what you're doing is amazing. Congratulations on that 50K grant, man.
Thank
You're
you.
going to be making such a massive impact because I know that you're such a great holistic person that's doing it for the right reasons. Not only that, but there's a level of realism that you carry that prompts all your moves and decisions, and you are a chess master in that regard. So I'm like, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. Can't wait to see how big this thing becomes.
Yes, sir. With that said, we're out. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Peace.